Capcom brought out the Street Fighter series for modern gaming with 4 in 2008, there were huge claims of excitement and a fresh take on an old gaming series that helped to build the fighting genre of video games. Capcom did not disappoint, and 4 was a seamless transition into modern gaming and was an excellent piece of work. Older gamers who had played prior games had no problems adjusting, and newer gamers were impressed with the dynamics of the game and the fluidity of characters and easy controls to jump into the game for the first time. The impressive amount of characters and stages at launch only got better as the game went along through its lifespan, and improvements made the gaming experience that much better. But eventually, the game reached its limits and Capcom planned the next installment, and players were naturally enthusiastic about that game as well. When Street Fighter V was released in 2016, it was a huge change from 4 in many ways, and even though the game has been out for years, it was a broken game. And if Capcom continues to make future installments of the Street Fighter franchise the way they did with 5, then there are plenty of problems, possibly, predictably, unavoidably in the future. Street Fighter V Vanilla. Commentators remarked at how small the initial roster for selectable playable characters were, and that costume selection for these characters were basic at the most. It was only from later on that more characters would be added. Features within the game in terms of modes for gameplay were also basic, as players did complain that all we got at the time was a game still under construction from Capcom. Later news reports, those rumors at the time were in fact true. We were playing a game that was still under construction by Capcom, and the bare bones features of the games would be upgraded progressively. If that's the case, then why would Capcom want to rush out a game when it's not fully ready to be released? Internal problems by Capcom during development. Originally, Street Fighter V was supposed to be free to play online with your console. However, due to funding problems by Capcom, they changed this. For example, let us say you own a PlayStation and you play Street Fighter IV. It was free to play online, in versus matches and in ranked matches. Due to funding problems again by Capcom during the course of Street Fighter V, they did not break even from game development in terms of revenue, and they needed to make back what they had just spent on the game. Now, just buying the game wasn't enough for Capcom to make back what it had lost. So naturally, Capcom decides that you must be a PlayStation Plus member to play Street Fighter V online. This marked a huge shift in expectations from Capcom because players felt cheated and violated by this decision. Not all PlayStation 4 owners were Plus members, and now there's a pay-to-play mandate. There's no avoiding it if you want to play internationally against players from all over the world on your console through your game. There were also plenty of broken computer servers and glitches within the game at launch, and gamers did take notice and mention this on social media. Capcom assumed that from launch, at least 2 million copies of the game would be sold by the end of the fiscal year in 2016. But actual sales records easily showed that the target was missed. Barely selling more than 1 million games by the middle of the year, gamers were in fact still playing Street Fighter IV, and hearing bad news about 5 kept them away from the game at launch and would only move to 5 later on. Endless character buffs and nerfs. Perhaps the most important problem within 5 were the constant problems of characters either being powered up or weakened down due to online player complaints or Capcom's own impressions of character strengths and weaknesses. One example of online competitive gaming was that in Season 1 of the game, Korean player Infiltration played Charlie better than anyone else in the world. Capcom noticed his techniques in playing the character as well as online players using the character as well. Complaints had it that the character was too strong and his abilities needed to be pulled back. So in the second season, Charlie's abilities were weakened and Infiltration commented publicly that it wasn't fair to make a character's abilities weak just because a player had skill with a said choice of character in a match. Another example was Japanese player Daigo and Ryu. He's among the best players in the world for Street Fighter. An online discussion had it that Capcom targeted him out specifically during the lifespan of 5 for his constant and steady use of Ryu. The character had so many buffs and nerfs to the point that the character was unusable by some. Even Daigo agreed with this and used other characters professionally in tournaments. The aspect of casual gaming in Street Fighter, the generational divide. Continuing on with the concept and theory of buffs and nerfs, Capcom desperately trying to please gamers, and the reality of the game soon became noticeable that two things now affected the Street Fighter series. The concept of casual gaming within Street Fighter, as well as a generational divide among players. Traditionally, Street Fighter games required skill for a player when using a character in the said match. Your skill, theoretically or possibly, could affect your chances of winning the match and how well you played during a round. This, among other attributes, were earned through years of play among wins and losses. From 4 and prior, there were plenty of older gamers who remember the original games and playing for years, developing their skills and a sense of what a Street Fighter game would be like. But with millennial players, a good amount of them have not exactly been playing that long and don't really want to devote years of playing to build up experience or skill within a game. For games, they just want to play now, as in the moment. And some have even dared to assume that they want to be great players quickly. Such a fact or desire is not possible, but the players of the Street Fighter series can now be arguably separated into the traditional loyal players and the modern casual players. Fight money. Even within the game, there are costumes that can be unlocked if you don't exactly want to spend actual currency for it. Playing various modes throughout the game can give you virtual currency for the game to unlock various things, from title bars to costumes and soundtracks. But the amount of money earned from said matches and the cost of characters to stages to unlock is ridiculously high. Players have simply bought season passes to have everything unlocked when released, rather than play endlessly for enough fight money to unlock the characters with the virtual currency within 5. Capcom heard the complaints from gamers and occasionally made challenges easier or gave free fight money to players for being loyal to Street Fighter V. But with the amount needed for characters to be unlocked being much more than that, it's of little consequence. Some commentators have mentioned that the concept of fight money is difficult on purpose to push gamers towards purchasing skins or characters with real currency, costumes, stages, and characters. Throughout the lifespan of 4, costume packs were sold through Sony and Microsoft's browsers for the game. There were examples of bundles or packs of costumes for every character, in some deals for roughly $20 US. This was actually a good deal because in 5, Capcom did not exactly have such deals on purpose in terms of extra stages or bundles or packs of costumes for characters. Mostly you had to buy each character costume separately, especially for particular skins. This sense of spending money between 4 and 5 actually costs you more when you compare the mathematics to what Capcom did between 4 and 5. You got a better deal in terms of costumes in Street Fighter 4 than costumes for what you might get with Street Fighter V. You weren't getting that good of a value for your money. The character selection in 5 were also complained and commented about as well. A good amount of gamers were theorizing that about the sort to be in the roster, and most assumed that from the wide and vast library of Street Fighter characters, we'd be getting more iconic ones brought back for a modern game. But many complained at the lack of familiar characters, and a majority were completely new to the series. The new characters had mixed receptions to them, and some just wanted older characters that had not been adopted in 4 to be brought back for 5. Capcom Pro Tour. Appealing to the millennial gamers' trend and phenomenon of watching playing and participating in tournaments, Capcom promoted its own tournamental contests with exclusive skins for characters and a stage just for the tour when it first started. Some said that it was a cheap attempt to build promotion for Capcom when fans were starting to become disappointed with the game. Others have commented that Capcom wanted to compete against Blizzard and Overwatch's own Pro Tour, the arcade edition. It's not like the problems with 5 just went away after gamers and fans complained online among each other and to Capcom about the poor aspects and dimensions of Street Fighter V. It got so bad that Capcom remade the visuals of the game with the arcade edition almost 2 years after 5 was first released in 2016. From 2018 and after, new modes to play and a fresh look to the game were nice, but the problems of the game still persisted. Online commentators have said that players know that 5 is a broken game and yet they continue to play anyway. There are so many problems with the game that minor fixes could not help. All that we can hope, and perhaps not to expect, is for future Street Fighter games to be as groundbreaking as previous installments were.